Eleanor Whitmore's hand froze halfway to her wine glass. The necklace around the waitress's neck was impossible. She'd sold it 48 years ago to pay for the daughter she gave away. But there it was, that unmistakable sapphire, deep blue with a tiny inclusion shaped like a bird in flight, hanging around the neck of a young black woman refilling water glasses at the Governor's Club charity luncheon in Houston. The wine glass slipped from Eleanor's fingers, shattered against the porcelain plate. Tears burst from her eyes before she could stop them, shocking her. She never cried, not at her husband's funeral, not when her company went public, not in 50 years. Eleanor? Her son Christopher was on his feet, napkin in hand, concern flooding his face. "Mother, what's wrong? You've gone completely white." She couldn't answer, because that necklace was moving closer as the waitress made her way down the table, and Eleanor's heart was hammering so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. It couldn't be the same one. The setting was different, cheaper silver instead of the original platinum, but the stone itself, that specific oval sapphire with its bird-shaped flaw, there was only one like it in the world, and Eleanor had inscribed the back of it in 1977 before selling it to pay for a closed adoption that haunted her every single day since. The waitress reached their section. Up close she was striking, mid-20s with her hair pulled back in a neat bun, moving with the quiet competence of someone who'd worked service for years. Her name tag read, Shayna. "More water, ma'am?" Shayna asked, pitcher poised over Eleanor's glass. Eleanor's eyes were locked on the necklace. "Where did you get that?" Shayna's hand went to the pendant instinctively, protective. "It was my mother's. Why?" The words hit Eleanor like a freight train. Mother's. "Eleanor, what's happening?" Christopher was standing now, concern etched on his face. Eleanor reached out with a trembling hand, not quite touching the necklace. "Please, I need to see it closer, just for a moment." Shayna stepped back slightly, her professional smile wavering. "Ma'am, it's just a necklace. It's not for sale. I don't want to buy it." Eleanor's voice cracked. Tears were already forming, shocking her. She never cried, not at her husband's funeral, not when her company went public, not in 50 years. There should be an inscription on the back of the stone, tiny. You'd need a magnifying glass to read it properly, but it's there. Around them, conversations had started to quiet. People were beginning to stare. Shayna exchanged glances with another server, uncertainty flickering across her face. What kind of inscription? Eleanor closed her eyes. The words came out broken, painful, like pulling glass from a wound. "For Margaret Rose, beloved daughter, may you always fly free." The silence that followed felt heavy enough to crush. When Eleanor opened her eyes, Shayna had gone completely still. Her hand was clutched around the pendant, knuckles pale. "How could you possibly know that?" Shayna whispered. Christopher tried to escort Eleanor out, but she pulled away with surprising strength. "Margaret Rose was my daughter," Eleanor said, her voice steady despite the tears on her cheeks. "I gave her up in 1977. She was 3 days old. And that necklace, I sold it to pay for the adoption that took her away from me." Shayna sank into the nearest chair, her composure crumbling. "My mother's name was Margaret Rose, but she died 2 years ago. Cancer." The math worked itself out in Eleanor's head with brutal clarity. If Margaret had been born in 1977, she'd have been 46 when she died, old enough to have had Shayna in her early 20s, old enough to have lived an entire life Eleanor knew nothing about. "Tell me about her," Eleanor said, sitting down across from Shayna without asking permission. "Please." The event coordinator approached, but something in Eleanor's expression stopped her mid-step. Shayna was shaking. "I don't understand. Mom never mentioned being adopted. She grew up in Atlanta. Had parents who loved her, my grandparents. They died when I was little." "Did they tell her?" Eleanor asked quietly. "That she was adopted?" "I don't know. She was sick for 18 months before she passed. We talked about everything, past, present, regrets, hopes. If she'd known, wouldn't she have told me?" Eleanor felt the grief like a physical weight. Her daughter had lived and died, possibly never knowing Eleanor had spent 48 years searching for her. "The necklace," Eleanor managed. "How did she get it?" Shayna's fingers traced the sapphire. She found it at an estate sale in 1998. I was just a baby, maybe 6 months old. She told me the story so many times. She saw it in a box of junk jewelry and felt this pull toward it. Paid $75. Wore it every single day after that. She said it felt like it belonged to her, even though she couldn't explain why. 21 years after Eleanor had sold it to a jeweler in New Orleans, desperate and 17. 21 years of that necklace passing through unknown hands until somehow, impossibly, it found Margaret. She was searching, Eleanor whispered. She didn't know it, but she was searching for something. Why did you give her up? The question came out sharp, protective. If you loved her enough to inscribe a necklace, why would you? I was 16 years old when I got pregnant, 17 when I had her. Eleanor's voice was steel wrapped in sorrow. Charleston, South Carolina, 1977. The father was black, a young man named Andre, whom I loved desperately. But my parents would have disowned me. His family would have faced danger. Do you understand what that meant back then? What that would have cost all of us? She looked directly at Shayna. I thought I was protecting her. The adoptive parents were a black couple from Atlanta, a doctor and a teacher, educated, stable, loving. I thought she'd have the life I couldn't give her. I thought I was being brave. Her voice cracked. But maybe I was just terrified. Shayna wiped at her eyes. Mum used to say she felt like something was missing, like there was a piece of herself she couldn't find. I always thought she meant my dad. He left before I was born. But maybe she meant me, Eleanor finished softly. Christopher, who'd been standing silently nearby, spoke up. Mother, you never told us. All these years, and you never said you had another child. Eleanor looked at her son, 43, successful. The child she'd had at 22 with a husband who'd helped build her empire. A respectable marriage, a planned child. Nothing like the desperate teenage love that had given her Margaret. How could I? Eleanor asked. I tried to find her, spent hundreds of thousands on investigators over the years, but the adoption was sealed, private. The lawyer died in the 80s. Records were destroyed. Every trail went cold. She turned back to Shayna. But you're here. You're real. You're my granddaughter. And that necklace found its way back. Shayna stood abruptly, chair scraping against the floor. I need air. This is too much. I'm working. I can't process this right now. Take the rest of the day, the restaurant manager said, appearing beside them. Paid. Take whatever time you need. Shayna nodded, not looking at anyone, and headed for the door. Wait, Eleanor called. Please, can we talk? Tomorrow, maybe. I know this is overwhelming. I know you don't know me. But I lost 48 years with my daughter. I don't want to lose the chance to know you. Shayna stopped in the doorway, back turned. For a long moment she didn't move. Then, without turning, the Garden Cafe. 2 blocks east, tomorrow 10 a.m. if I show up. She was gone before Eleanor could respond. Eleanor didn't sleep that night. In her study, she opened the small safe she'd kept locked for decades. Inside, a hospital bracelet reading, Baby Girl Whitmore. One blurry photograph of Margaret in a pink blanket, taken by a sympathetic nurse. The adoption papers with most information redacted, and 46 letters she'd written to her daughter over the years, one on each birthday, never sent because she had nowhere to send them. Christopher found her at 3 in the morning, staring at that photograph. All these years I had a sister, he said quietly, settling into the chair across from her. Had, Eleanor repeated. Past tense. She's gone. I'll never get to explain, never apologize, never know if she thought about me at all. But Shayna's here, Christopher said. That has to mean something. Eleanor looked at her son. What if she doesn't show tomorrow? What if this is too much for her? Then you'll live with it. But Mother, you've spent 5 decades living with the pain of giving Margaret up. At least now you have a chance at something different, even if it's just one conversation. He was right. But the waiting still felt impossible. At 9:55 the next morning, Eleanor sat alone at a corner table in the Garden Cafe, coffee untouched. At 10:07 the door opened. Shayna looked exhausted, dressed in jeans and a simple blouse. And the blue necklace. Always the necklace. She slid into the seat across from Eleanor without a word. "I looked you up last night," Shayna said. "Eleanor Whitmore, real estate developer, worth over 300 million, sits on 5 charity boards, known for your work with homeless women and children, youth adoption services, single mothers." "Yes," Eleanor said carefully. "That's not random. The charity work." The bluntness was startling. "No, it's not random. It's guilt. And it's trying to do something meaningful with the life I built after I gave up the most meaningful thing I ever had." Shayna pulled out her phone, scrolled, then turned it around. This is her, 3 months before she died. Eleanor's breath stopped. The woman in the photo was thin from illness but smiling, sitting in a hospital bed with flowers on the table beside her. She had Eleanor's eyes, Eleanor's cheekbones, Andre's warm skin and beautiful smile. A perfect blend of the two people who'd made her. "She's beautiful," Eleanor whispered. "She was everything." Shayna pulled the phone back, her thumb tracing the screen. "Shayna Marie Foster. That's me. Mum gave me her middle name as my first name. Said Marie meant wished for child. She worked as a nurse's aide for 23 years. Made sure I graduated high school. Started saving for my college before I was 10. Her voice tightened. "The cancer came fast. Stage 4 by the time they found it. She fought for 18 months. We talked about everything near the end. Her regrets, her hopes for me, every memory she wanted me to have." She stopped, breathed. "And she never once mentioned being adopted. Never said she was searching for anyone." "Maybe she didn't know," Eleanor said. "Or maybe she knew but didn't know how to find me. Or maybe—" She paused. "Maybe she made peace with it in ways I never could." Shayna stared at the necklace's reflection in her phone screen. "Mom used to tell me stories about a mother bird who pushed her baby out of the nest so it would learn to fly. About a queen who gave up her throne to save her kingdom. Always stories about sacrifice and letting go." She looked up at Eleanor. "I think she knew. Not the details. Not your name. But I think part of her understood. Someone had loved her enough to let her go. And I think that's why she told me those stories. She was trying to explain something she couldn't name." Eleanor's tears came then, unstoppable. "I did love her. I loved her and Andre so much it felt like it would kill me. He wanted to run away together, raise her together, consequences be damned. But I was 16 and terrified. I thought we'd all be destroyed. Him, her, me. So I destroyed us in a different way instead." "What happened to him? To Andre?" "He joined the military after I left Charleston. That's all I know. I heard once that he became a medic, but I never tried to find him. I was too ashamed of the choice I'd made, so he became another ghost from a life I tried to forget." Eleanor pulled a folded letter from her purse, yellowed paper, careful handwriting. "I wrote this when Margaret turned 18, and I've written one every year since. 46 letters she never got, one for every birthday she never saw. But maybe you'd like to read them, to know what I would have said if I'd had the chance." Shayna took the letter with shaking hands and read in silence. Eleanor watched her granddaughter's face as she absorbed words meant for her daughter, apologies and explanations and desperate declarations of love that never faded. When Shayna finished, she pressed the letter flat on the table between them. "Mom wore this necklace every single day," she said quietly. "Even at the end, when she was too weak to get out of bed. She'd touch it and smile, like it was reminding her of something safe." She reached up and unclasped the necklace, then held it across the table. "Look at the back." Eleanor took it with trembling hands and turned the sapphire over. There, beneath the original inscription, was fresh engraving added decades later, "For Shayna Marie, beloved daughter. May you always fly free." Eleanor's sob came from somewhere deep and broken inside her. "She had that added when I was born," Shayna said, her own tears falling. 25 years ago. She wanted me to have something that connected me to something bigger than just us. She didn't know what, but she knew it mattered. She was connecting you to me," Eleanor whispered. even without knowing. She was keeping it whole. They stayed in that cafe for 3 hours. Shayna told Eleanor everything. How Margaret had sung in the church choir, how she'd fought cancer with grace, how she'd made Shayna promise to finish nursing school, the dream Margaret never got to pursue herself. Eleanor told Shayna about those 3 days in 1977, how she'd held Margaret and memorized every detail, knowing she'd never see her again, how Andre had cried when they said goodbye, how she'd chosen fear over love and paid for it every day since. "I'm in my last year of nursing school," Shayna said eventually. "I work 3 jobs to cover what scholarships don't. Mom wanted this for me so badly. She saved every penny she could before she got sick, but medical bills ate through everything. I'm doing it for her. Whatever it takes." Eleanor felt something shift inside her, grief transforming into purpose. "What if you didn't have to work while you studied?" she asked carefully. "What if I helped?" Shayna stiffened. "I don't want your money. It's not charity. It's a grandmother trying to do for her granddaughter what she couldn't do for her daughter. It's me asking if maybe we could be family, even though I don't deserve it, even though I've missed so much." Shayna was quiet, fingers tracing the sapphire's outline on the table between them. "Mom used to say family isn't just blood," she finally said. "It's who shows up, who stays, who chooses you when it's hard." She looked up at Eleanor with eyes full of pain and possibility. "You didn't get to show up for her. That's done, we can't change it. But maybe you can show up for me. If you really mean it. If you're ready to be family and not just ease your conscience." "I mean it," Eleanor said immediately. "I'll mean it every day for whatever time I have left if you'll let me." Shayna nodded slowly. Then she picked up the necklace and held it out. "I want you to keep this, not forever. Just until we figure out what we're building here. Until I know it's real." Eleanor took the necklace with shaking hands. The sapphire was warm from Shayna's skin, heavy with history. "May we always fly free," Eleanor whispered. "May we always fly free," Shayna repeated. They left the cafe 2 hours later with exchanged phone numbers and a promise to try. Just try. No guarantees. No pressure. Just 2 women who'd lost the same person in different ways, learning whether grief could transform into something like family. It did, slowly, in the small moments that followed. Late-night phone calls where Shayna vented about difficult patients and Eleanor listened, like every word mattered. Sunday dinners where Christopher's family stopped being strangers and started being aunts, uncles, cousins. Quiet afternoons, reading through 46 years of letters Eleanor had written to a daughter who never received them, Shayna's mother speaking to her across decades of silence. By the 3rd month, something had shifted. Shayna stopped asking, "Are you sure?" every time Eleanor offered help. She stopped bracing for disappointment. And one Sunday, Eleanor fastened the necklace back around Shayna's neck. "It belongs with you," Eleanor said, her fingers trembling as she worked the clasp. "It always did. It found Margaret. It found you. And now it's home." Shayna touched the sapphire, feeling its familiar weight settle against her collarbone. Tears blurred her vision. "Thank you for showing up, for staying, for being what I didn't know I needed." Eleanor cupped Shayna's face gently. "Thank you for giving me a second chance I don't deserve." "Everyone deserves a second chance," Shayna whispered. "Mum taught me that." 6 months after that impossible moment in the restaurant, Eleanor stood at the back of an auditorium at Houston Community College, clutching a bouquet of white roses so tightly the stems bent in her hands. Shayna crossed the stage in navy scrubs and a white nursing cap, the blue sapphire catching the auditorium lights with every step. Her smile was radiant, proud, everything Margaret's smile would have been. Shayna Marie Foster, Bachelor of Science in Nursing. The applause was thunderous. Christopher and his family jumped to their feet, cheering. His kids waved a homemade sign, "Congrats, Cousin Shayna." But Eleanor just stood there, tears streaming down her face, watching her granddaughter accept the diploma Margaret had dreamed of earning, but never got the chance to pursue. She's doing it for both of them, Eleanor thought, for herself and for the mother she lost too soon. After the ceremony, Shayna found Eleanor waiting by the auditorium doors, still clutching those white roses. She ran the last few steps and pulled her grandmother into a fierce embrace, diploma clutched between them. "Mom would have loved this," Shayna said, her voice thick with emotion. "She would have been screaming louder than everyone else combined." "She would have been so incredibly proud," Eleanor agreed, pulling back to look at her granddaughter's face. "Just like I am, just like I'll always be." Shayna's hand went to the necklace, the gesture automatic now. "Thank you for being here, for making this possible, for helping me fly." Eleanor touched the sapphire gently, that same stone she'd sold 47 years ago, in desperation and grief, choosing what she thought was safety over love. The stone that had somehow, impossibly, found its way back through decades and coincidence and the mysterious pull of family that even separation couldn't break. "May you always fly free," Eleanor whispered. "May we always fly free," Shayna corrected softly, pulling her grandmother close again. And for the first time in 47 years, Eleanor believed those words might actually be true. The blue sapphire still catches the light the same way it did in 1976. But now when Eleanor sees it around Shayna's neck, at Sunday dinners where Shayna brings her nursing school friends, at the hospital where Eleanor volunteers just to watch her granddaughter work, at Christopher's house where 3 generations gather for holidays that used to feel incomplete, she doesn't see only loss anymore. She sees Margaret, alive in her daughter's fierce determination and gentle hands and the way she hums while she works, just like Eleanor used to do. She sees Andre, present in Shayna's strength and grace and the kindness that flows from her as naturally as breathing. She sees 47 years of grief transformed into something that looks like joy, feels like redemption, sounds like laughter at a dinner table that finally holds everyone it's supposed to hold. The necklace found its way home. And so, against all impossible odds, did they? If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that it's never too late for redemption, never too late to show up, never too late to be family, please subscribe right now. Because stories like this matter. They show us that our biggest mistakes don't have to be our final chapters. That grace exists even when we don't think we deserve it. That sometimes what we lose finds its way back in ways we never imagined possible. Love doesn't disappear just because we can't see it. It waits. It transforms. And when the moment is right, it comes home. Subscribe so you never miss stories about second chances, about healing that spans generations, about the mysterious ways family finds each other, even across decades of separation. And before you go, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Houston, like Eleanor and Shayna, New York, California, another country entirely. If you know someone who needs to hear this today, someone carrying old regrets, someone who thinks it's too late to make things right, someone who's lost connection with family, share this video with them. You never know whose life might change because you decided to pass along a story about hope. Because here's the truth. It's never too late to show up. It's never too late to try. It's never too late for love to find its way home. May you always fly free.